Welcome to Cheating Tales Dairy. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story. That year, Boston's winter wasn't just cold. It was cruel. But I wasn't afraid of the snow. I was afraid of a storm no one else could see. A storm brewing inside my own home. My name is James Warren. I'm 43 years old. I built my reputation in the world of private security. The kind that works quietly for billionaires, politicians, and sometimes people the government won't admit exist. I own Pierce Shield, a private security firm trusted by the highest profile clients in America. My home was a 3-story brownstone, all brick and steel. Every corner had state-of-the-art tech, CCTV, bulletproof glass, biometric locks, but no system can detect a fracture in love. My wife, Livia, had been by my side for 15 years. We met when she was just an assistant curator at a local art gallery, and I was a low-level security tech with dirt under my nails. Our love was real. That love gave us 2 children, Ellie and Josh. But lately, something in her had shifted. Late nights, new dresses, expensive perfumes, and a sharpness in her voice, like I had suddenly become a burden. I never doubted her, not once. Until that night. An anonymous message came through. "Stop her, or it all falls apart." There was a link. I clicked. A video opened. And there she was, Livia, my wife, with Kyle, the son of my biggest client, in my own office, on my own desk, the same place I'd taught my staff about integrity, about trust. She was laughing, free, unbothered, like nothing she was doing was wrong. That moment took the air out of my lungs. It wasn't her laugh that broke me. It was her face. Calm, pleased, innocent, as if none of this mattered. At 2:47 a.m. that night, James Warren, the husband, died. What was left was just a father. No longer a husband, just a man who made a vow no one else in this family will ever break again. I didn't scream. I didn't go on a rampage. That's not how truth wins. Because when you scream, people think you're crazy. But when you gather the truth silently, that's when the world is forced to listen. The next morning, I started my quiet war. Not for revenge, not for humiliation, but for documentation. For truth. I trusted only 2 people in my IT department. Maria Lucas, my senior analyst, and David Hahn, a junior coder. I gave them a task, completely off the record. I want 6 months of my wife's data, location history, call logs, text backups, cloud photos, and I don't want a single server log. Maria paused. Is this professional or personal? I looked her straight in the eye. This is about being human. 3 days later, the truth was in front of me. Her meetings, her repeated bookings at the Minton Hotel. Kyle's name was everywhere. Then came the bank statements. Small, repeated transfers from our joint account to an untraceable wallet. Then the chat logs. I read every message like I was swallowing fire. He still sees me like his little wife. He has no idea who really holds the power. Livia to Kyle. Once this is over, he'll step away on his own, and the whole legacy will be yours. Each word cut deeper than the last. But I didn't break a glass. I didn't scream. I just kept reading. He looked at Maria and said quietly, "One more thing. I want a full profile on that client. Kyle Jennings. His father's business deals, his own companies, legal history. I want everything." Maria didn't ask why. She just nodded. Because now she understood. This wasn't just about a marriage falling apart. This was a conspiracy. one that could swallow James's identity, his reputation, even his company. And James had made up his mind. If exposing the truth meant burning everything down, then he'd rise from the ashes. When James gathered all the evidence, he hoped, prayed, even, that his family would believe him. Because if the world turns its back on you, family is supposed to be your last line of defense. Right? He went to his mother first. Elora Ferguson, a respected community counselor in Massachusetts, a woman praised in church circles for helping broken families heal. A moral compass to everyone. Except, it turned out, her own son. James laid everything in front of her. The chat logs, the transactions, the hotel visits, a full file of proof. She didn't even blink before speaking. Maybe this happened because of something you did, James. A woman like Livia doesn't just change overnight. James felt hollow. Mom, are you saying these files, this proof? I'm saying, she interrupted coldly, you've spent so long trying to be perfect. You forgot how to be human. A wife needs more than loyalty. She needs love. Next, James went to his father. Richard Ferguson, once a brilliant military strategist, now retired in a quiet veteran's home. Richard listened without interrupting. Then, after a long silence, he said just one thing. The first mistake in any war is failing to identify the real enemy in time. James asked quietly, "Are you talking about Livia or me?" Richard looked him in the eyes. "That's your call to make, son." Then came the deepest cut of all. His older brother, Daniel. The same Daniel who built backyard forts with him as a kid. The same Daniel who invested in James's first startup. Daniel glanced through the file, then shrugged and said, "Ever think, maybe Livia went to Kyle because she didn't feel something with you? Maybe you weren't giving her what a husband should." James's throat went dry. "Dan, she's not chasing a feeling. She's conspiring behind my back to steal my company. This isn't some emotional affair. This is criminal strategy." Daniel raised his hands passively. "If you think there's a legal case, go that route. But I'm not getting involved." That evening, James sat alone in his car outside the house. And for the first time, he was afraid of himself. This was the same man who designed cyber defense systems for top-level global clients. And now, he was completely surrounded by silence, in his own family. But in that darkness, there was a light. Ella, his 10-year-old daughter. She walked into his study that night, didn't say a word, just sat beside him. After a few minutes, she whispered, "Daddy, when I grow up, I don't want to be like Mommy. I want to be like you, quiet, but always honest." Something in James cracked open. The loneliness melted, just a little. Now he knew. He wasn't completely alone. He was broken, yes, but he was still a father. And for his daughter, he'd fight, not for revenge, but for truth. After that night, James didn't shed another tear. He asked no more questions. He made no more noise. The people he once called family had cut him off. The woman he called wife was gambling with the identity built from his blood. And those he called friends were negotiating in silence. But James made a vow. Not in a courtroom, not on paper. A vow whispered only in the silence of a shattered man's soul. From now on, he told himself, every move I make will be calculated. No mistakes, no impulse, not revenge, justice. He didn't close the file on Livia's affair. He expanded it. He mapped every message to a timeline. He traced every bank transfer to a name. He cross-referenced every hotel visit with security footage. And that's when he discovered Livia wasn't acting alone. A technical officer in his own company was involved. Together, they were building a network. A plan to steal classified data from Pierce Shield's private client base. This wasn't an affair. It was insider trading, corporate espionage, a full-blown operation masked as a love story. But James didn't block anyone. He didn't call, scream, or threaten. Instead, he spent his days with Ella, his daughter, his armor, school drop-offs, story time, piano lessons together. He knew this was his shield. And every night, once Ella was asleep, James would return to his desk. He wasn't collecting evidence. He was writing the obituary of a man who still looked alive on the outside, but had already been hollowed out inside. To Livia, James seemed like the quiet, passive husband. But what she didn't know, his silence was going to be her greatest punishment. A few days before Christmas, Livia said she was heading to her mother's place. A family dinner, she claimed. But James already knew the truth. Her suitcase was packed ahead of time. Her hair had fresh highlights. And on her wrist, the same designer watch Kyle, her corporate accomplice, had gifted her. James simply smiled and said, "Take care of yourself." She had no idea. The storm had already been set in motion. The next morning, encrypted drives were anonymously delivered to the city's major corporations, the police department, and a few key media houses. Inside, call recordings, bank transfers, leaked office documents, and a full video. Livia and her partner negotiating client data during their so-called affair. At the end of that drive was a single line. "This is not revenge. This is exposure. Let the system do the rest." The city erupted. News headlines lit up. The CEO's wife and the data scandal. Corporate betrayal in high heels. When loyalty becomes leverage. But James, he stayed hidden. He was in a small town with Ella, enjoying her school break. No press, no noise, just presence. Back in the city, the law and the media closed in on Livia. She tried to defend herself, but every denial triggered a new layer of evidence. James didn't press charges. He didn't file a complaint. But the network he had built, the media, the internal ethics board, law enforcement intel, was already at work. An FIR was filed against Livia. Her accomplice was arrested. And in an unexpected move, the corporate board awarded James the Corporate Ethics Integrity Award. A CEO who remained silent, but revealed the truth. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, served not in anger, but with a calm mind. When Livia finally appeared in court, she wore the same innocent smile she always used. But this time, it couldn't save her. There was no high-profile lawyer, no script that could make her look like the victim. The judge reviewed the evidence and said, "You didn't just betray your husband. You betrayed a corporation, a community, and most of all, your own daughter." Her bail was denied. And that's when her real downfall began. Her so-called partner faced 3 criminal charges: data theft, bribery, and corporate surveillance. When they faced each other in court, Livia didn't even look at him. Maybe she finally realized the man she risked everything for never cared for her to begin with. James's quiet response became a case study in the corporate world. Reporters, lawyers, business leaders all started saying the same thing. This wasn't a man out for revenge. This was a man who fought to protect the truth. Through the entire storm, James never once held a press conference, never gave an interview. He spoke only once during a closed internal board meeting, where he said, "Some relationships are like walls made of clay. They collapse in the lightest rain. But truth? Truth is the stone we rebuild entire buildings on." Livia became a pariah. Her old friends abandoned her. Her name turned into memes across social media. Even her sister, who once blamed James, publicly apologized. From every direction, Livia was met with shame and isolation. And James? He was still silent, but his silence had become a living example of justice, now recorded in the system itself. At a time when James was winning on all fronts, in court, in his company, and in the public eye, his only real concern was Ella. His 13-year-old daughter had seen her mother taken away in a police car, had heard whispers at school, and had listened to doors slam and screams echo through the house that night. James knew Ella's trust had cracked, but it hadn't shattered completely. At first, Ella went quiet. She ate less, spoke even less. One day, she wrote in her diary, "Dad's a good man, but do good men let go of moms like that?" James didn't steal her diary. She'd left it open on the table. Maybe she wanted him to read it, to understand, and respond. But James didn't give a speech. He just started showing up, slowly, consistently, watching her favorite shows together at night, hugging her when she came home from school, always saying the same thing. "If you ever want to talk, I'm right here." One evening, while they flipped through old photo albums, Ella asked softly, "Dad, did you forgive Mom?" James took a moment, then answered, "I couldn't forgive her, but I'll never let you carry the weight of her choices." There was no anger in his voice, no sarcasm, just a father's quiet truth. And that was enough for Ella. Gradually, she started reaching for his hand again, asking for help on school projects, talking about college, and one day saying, "I want you to be the first speaker at my graduation, because you taught me how to stand back up, even after everything falls apart." That moment, James realized his biggest victory wasn't in court. It was in his daughter's heart. James had entered a phase of life where every relationship was being reevaluated. But now, without emotion, with boundaries, with dignity, Livia was still in prison. By court order, there was no direct contact. Once a month, Ella received letters from her mother, but James gave her the choice. "You can read them or tear them, no pressure." She threw away the first two without opening them. The third, she read, and quietly tucked it in her closet. "Did you reply?" James asked gently. "No," Ella said. "Not yet. Maybe never." That maybe said everything. There was no hate, but there was no ember left in the ashes either. James's parents, Richard and Alora, once blind supporters of Livia, now came over every weekend, bringing Ella sweets, repeating one line, "Forgive us, son." But James wasn't pulling anyone back out of guilt anymore. He had set boundaries for them, too. "If you ever defend Livia in front of Ella again, the door won't open next time." Their eyes welled up, but James's face stayed calm. One Sunday, Richard held Alora's hand and said quietly, "Our son's wiser than we ever were." Patrick, James's old friend and once Livia's business partner, was gone from his life. Betrayal, James had learned, cost more than money. The people around James now? Fewer, but real. Ella, himself, and sometimes his sister Martha, who had questioned Livia from the very beginning. These relationships weren't built on forgiveness anymore. They were built on respect. One afternoon over lunch, James said to Ella, "Our home may be smaller now, but it's peaceful." Ella assentiu. And it's honest too. James had come to understand something deeply. Even the strongest walls crumble when they're built on lies and greed. Now that it was all over, Livia behind bars, full custody of Ella awarded to James, and the company thriving again under his lead. There came the question, what now? James made a decision. He sold the old family home, the one with walls that still whispered betrayal and screams, and bought a new one with an open yard, clean air, and nothing but truth in its foundation. A fresh start. For both of them. He didn't just change homes. He gave his company, Pierce Contracting and Design, a new direction too. He launched a project called Foundation of Trust, affordable housing for single parents rebuilding their lives, not just homes, spaces for second chances. Etched under every foundation slab were the words, "Real relationships can be rebuilt." He often took Ella to visit the sites, showed her how even broken bricks can be used again, if the foundation is real. One evening, driving home from a project site, Ella asked, "Dad, you bring hope to so many people, but are you truly happy?" James smiled, a smile full of peace, a hint of regret, but mostly quiet belief. "I am now," he said, "because you, Ella, are my foundation now." Time passed. Ella went off to college, studying psychology. She wanted to help children who had lived through broken homes. And James? He felt something strange yet full, a blend of pride and peace. He had lost so much: love, family, reputation. But what remained was pure. When people now ask him, "Did you get your revenge?" James simply replies, "It was never revenge. It was a legacy of truth that rebuilt me as a man." And when he writes the final words in his journal, they read, "If Ella ever reads this, I hope she knows her dad was never a hero, just a broken man who chose to rise again, so his daughter would never have to fall." And this is where our story ends. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for watching till the end. If this story touched you, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story like this. And turn on the bell icon, so you're always the first to know when truth finds its voice.